Hello. Here is the spare gearbox casing, and in a moment I'll show you the gearbox casing that I'm going to use. And where I'm kind of prescribing a line there with my thumb and my finger underneath is where I've just spent half an hour. I've just spent half an hour absolutely grinding the bejeebers out of this one. I've just put a little bit of paint on it. Can you see under there, look? Can you see that this one's nice and kind of just tapered away like a Ford box? That pulley was about there, wasn't it? It was like about a belt width there. So if I say I'm going to move it forward an inch, the pulley's going to come forward sort of to about there. So if I was to cut along this edge here, then taper it up to here, that would probably be enough. Or I could use this, but this would need trimming away as well. Hello, mate. Hello, sweetie. Or I could use this one. This one would need to be kind of trimmed off along here like this. These would need to come forward to about here, so I might be able to just kind of take these off and I don't know, kind of V-cut them maybe. I don't know if I'll get enough movement out of them, or just make some new ones, but that's quite a big job. There's my little helper today, Captain. Okay, I just remembered that I'd got something else that might be useful. Oh, I've took it in the other room. I've got this other Model A crossmember. I was donated this recently. Thank you, Steve. This one's already been trimmed here. But it needs a little bit of tidying up. It's not bad. It's got a weld there that needs grinding. It's got a couple of welds there. And it's got a weld there, which might be difficult to reach with a grinder. And it's got a weld there. But other than that, it's not bad. It's got a weld there as well. You know, it's obviously been tacked into a frame, hasn't it, at some point. I brought it in here where I do my grinding, and what I'm going to do, I think, is kind of extend this down here like that and down there, because this is just dead metal here really. And then I'll try and take away some of these welds and things that are where they shouldn't be. I'll put my ear defenders on and get on with that before it's too late in the evening. Okay, back in a bit. Hello, carrying on with the would you believe the gearbox swap. I've just spent quite a while dismantling all the front end, headlights off, shock towers off, brake brackets off, and bolts out of the crossmember. So yeah, anyway, it's been a struggle, but I have done it. But in theory that is capable of being moved now. That one down there, it's a Model A one, and I've trimmed it and welded, ground the welds off. So in theory I ought to be able to bolt that one in. I've started wearing these now when I'm using the hammers and the air gun. I forgot on this side. I just put one bolt in each side just to kind of hold the position. Some of the holes don't line up, but some do. So I've gone with the central bolt there. So I'll have to re-drill the holes. But what I can do now, I'll lower it back down, put it back on the spring and just see how it looks with the engine in. I'll bring you back when the motor's back in the hole. Okay, that don't look too bad. I'm possibly slightly off centre there, but close. It's as far back as it can go, so in reality it needs to come forward just a little bit from there to clear at the back. And it can come forward a little bit, and it could come a bit higher if need be. I could raise the engine a little bit. I've slung the overdrive onto the back of the gearbox. I've got the rear mount in place on a couple of bolts at the top, and within the realms of being able to get bolts in the bottom as well. So it's given me an idea of how thick a spacer I want to space that back from the K member. There's clearance here, which is good, and there's clearance here, which is good. I'm kind of toying with the idea of maybe slotting the holes to allow the whole thing to come down a little bit, because I think if it comes down a little bit it can also come back a little bit, because I want to limit the amount that I move the engine forward to the minimum. But until I've settled the amount of forward movement of the engine, I can't work out the torque tube length. But the overdrive is in. Look, there it is. I might look at lowering it about 3/16, something like that, about 5mm. That's how it looks from above. There is it's like a raised portion here that fouls here at the top, and that's why I've had to move it forward quite a bit. Let's see how it looks at the front. That pulley is just above that lip, so maybe I'll lower it down just a bit. I think it's leaning to the one side a little bit. That's very close there. I'll have to change that bolt to a different type of bolt. I wanted to just look under here, because that gearbox was sitting down on that ball yesterday. It's hard to get the camera in. Okay, so there's the ball and the gearbox is above it. Sorry if I'm holding the camera at a funny angle. Yeah, so I mean that is, well, I can get that finger in right up to the knuckle, so that's a good ½ an inch. So it could come down a little bit, and if it came down a little bit it could come back a little bit as well. It's a case of just juggling a fraction this way and a fraction that way and a fraction this way and a fraction that way, just trying to get it to work. See that lower boss? I was able to get my finger between that lower boss and the rear wall of the K member. So if it came down a little bit it could go back a little bit. I've just thought of a way I can do it. Okay, right, leave it with me and I'll be back in a bit. Hello, I was working on the car yesterday and I did a round of moving the engine, just trying to find the sweet spot, or let's say the least bitter spot. I've got a position there where it's as far back as I dare, and I've changed the height a little bit here and there to try and create as much clearance as I can here on the steering box. Down there, it's very tight. Well, this isn't bolted on it, but it's very tight. I lowered the rear of the transmission so that this little area here just slips underneath. So that it'll have 1.5 mm at the back of the gearbox, between the gearbox and the K-member. Now, in any other application you'd say, oh, you can't really do that because you can't have something that close, but this has solid bars positioning it front to rear, which you can fine adjust, so you can go that close, and if it touches you can just, I'll make the steady rods so that they're adjustable somehow, because they need to be longer than standard anyway, so I'm going to have to make some new ones. So I can make these steady rods adjustable and you know, be able to just set it just nice. So it's as low as I can go and as far back as I can go, which I think is the best thing. I will have to rework the rear mount that I made to get that so it lines up with the bolt holes, but that's okay. I have a little concern that the rear mount isn't going to be stiff enough, because if you can imagine that you've got any movement that way, especially with it extended further back and with a shorter torque tube, that will be tending to steer the rear axle. So what I envisage is like a panhard rod, if you like, from the end of the gearbox to the frame, like a rod from the end of the gearbox to the frame, just to steady it in that direction. I think with all the juggling around, this is about the best position that I've got. I decided that it needs new engine mounts, so I've started, you know, every job starts by cutting a piece of metal on the bandsaw, doesn't it? That will go inside the frame rail. There's two positions there for those two holes. That hole and that hole are there and there. So this will be cut away. This piece will be welded on there like that, sticking inwards, and will form the engine mount. So that's my idea anyway. To start by making the engine mounts and the transmission mount. That's the logical thing to start with, isn't it? It's like building a car from scratch, isn't it? When you restore a car, you don't have to do any of this stuff. I'm not decrying restorers. They have different aims and goals, and that is beautiful restorations. I've got a very high degree of respect for restorers, but when you're hot rodding a car, you have to think of all these things, and trying to hot rod a car while not destroying the original car makes it kind of doubly hard. If you were starting from scratch with a repro frame, and you could stick the engine anywhere you like. Anyway, so that's a little roundup of what I was doing yesterday, which was basically moving things around. You have to spend a long time doing that, otherwise you end up with something that just don't work. I'll bring you back when there's more to show. There's the first engine mount, kind of roughed out and fitted in, and the weight of the engine is down on it. You can see there's some tacks there. Unfortunately, I cut it about ½ an inch too high, so you can see a gap underneath there that needs filling in. If I had more material, I'd make another one, but I don't have any more material. I've only got enough to just make one for the other side. But that was my gauge there. I wanted about 3/4 of an inch from the top face down to the top of the frame rail. There's two 3/8 lathe tools there. I've ordered some bolts to go here. there, and I've ordered some bolts to go in the steering box as well. I think once you make the decision that you're going to do something, you just have to get on and do it. It's all, really, all of this is kind of tried and tested stuff, isn't it? I would have, you know, if the engine was a tiny bit further back, that would be better, but I'm sure it's all workable. Okay, I'll bring you back when there's more to show. Hello. It's the day after, and yesterday hello mate, how you doing? You alright? Katie's dog. I copied that engine mount on that side and made a copy for this side with a slight improvement, because I've got a couple of bits that I need to fill in on that one. So this one is in place, so it's only held in by one bolt. Yes, a 1/4 inch bolt is holding up that flathead. The position of the engine kind of looks okay, and you can see down the back of there as well. It probably is about 5/8 of an inch that I kind of measured when I did the initial mock-up. So that's looking good. Hello, you join me under the car. I've put that bracket on there that I've started to make, and I have used these 2 G-clamps, that's the English term for them, to raise the mount until this bottom half of it has just started to support it. But what I can see is that the hole actually isn't that far off. So what I'm thinking is that I will either drill a new hole just above that one, or maybe even slot the hole. The only thing is, if you can imagine, if this was the top piece, the hole's got to come this way. There isn't much room there, so I might have to flatten the flange and then maybe weld a washer on or something. Righto, back in a bit. I have filed the holes there into slots, that one and that one. I put some 7/16 bolts in, and with like a stack of washers to act as a spacer. But in theory now I can slacken them nuts, put a jack under the mount, or maybe put them G-clamps back on again and just lift it up very slightly and keep nipping it up until I've got the clearance that I want. Yeah, that might work, mightn't it? Let's try that. Bring it back in a little bit. Yeah, so that's actually higher than it's kind of higher. No, it's a bit cockeyed actually, look, because this one's up and that one's down. So it's at the top of the slot on that one, and it isn't at the top of the slot on that one. But that actually doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as long as it's located. So what I'm interested in is, yeah, that's clear, isn't it? That's all right, that's clear. That bolt's clear. That area there, down there, is clear. My little bit of shim metal has fell out. It could actually come back a tiny bit from there. I'm looking right down the bottom there. But that's okay actually. That bit of metal there is loose. That's the clearance on the ball. That's not tight. So yeah, so that's kind of in as close as I can get it, and that's all clear there. Okay, well, that, see that movement there, that means that there's that much, oops, there's that much kind of free play. But I think that's okay. Yes, I think that's okay. And if you think about it, it isn't much different than standard. So that's probably a good way of doing it. And I have enough room to get, when I put the overdrive on, I have enough room to get to the nuts and bolts. But also, by lifting the front of the engine and lowering the back and pushing it back as far as I can get that mount, that top mount, in and out okay without struggling. Being able to get it in and out is very important, because it makes it more feasible or viable to be able to pull the engine and box easily, more easily. Yeah, I think that's looking okay. Quite pleased with that. I know it's a bit lopsided, but you know, it wouldn't take much to slacken them all off and straighten them up, would it? I will be back in a bit. I'll see you in a bit. Bye. Yesterday I got that rear mount in place. I'm worried about side to side movement here, because that will steer the rear axle, and that will be accentuated because of the shortness of the torque tube. You know, pardon me, I need to deal with engine steady rods which go from there to that position there, and I need to lengthen those. But yesterday I had a little bit of an idea that if you can imagine the overdrive sitting here, coming back, so you got the torque tube area just here. If you can imagine a rod from there to there running like that, and one from there, a pair of rods like that would in effect act as the engine steady rods, because they will keep everything in position and centralize it side to side. So here's the overdrive. So I've got this area here where I can weld to on the there, and that's right at the point where the load will be generated. I have a tub full of these, so you can imagine that like that, with a couple of ears welded onto there and a bolt going through. These are a bit bigger than I need, but I already own them, so that's alright. And you can imagine this tubing, which is tappable to take this. I can tap this tube to take that, so a piece of that tubing tapped at both ends, one of these in each end, so that end will be like that, this end will be like this, and then a simple bracket to accept that bolts into the engine steady rod location. So I think that'll be quite good actually, because it will stabilise this end. It will take all the load off this. This won't be asked to do any work, and I think that'll work really well, and it will save having to modify or make new engine steady rods. These are the steady rods, but they're arranged in such a way that they stabilise this side to side. I'm almost getting to the point where I can fit this. So before I fit it, I want to make a pair of tabs. I might not do these rods right now, but I've got the idea how to do them. So what I want to do is make a pair of tabs that will go on there and weld onto that curved surface there. I will get this set up in such a way that I can take this off, do the welding, then I'll refit it all. Hello, there are the tags welded on that side, and there are the tags welded on that side, so those are in place. So you can imagine when that's put back on, then I've got the attachment points then for the locator bars. I think they might be very slightly out of alignment, but it doesn't matter because they're spherical rod ends. It's very difficult to locate them, to be honest. I sighted them from the end and they looked okay. Looks like they're slightly, oh, I don't know. Yeah, okay. They're a bit out, but I'm not going to cut them off and re-weld them because I'm sure they'll be okay. The thing is, I can't get, if I wanted to cut that off, I can't really get in with a grinder. No, I'm going to leave them. I'm not happy, but I'm going to leave them. It's the old warts and all Mart's garage video. Okay, righto. Anyway, so there's the tags. I'm sure they're functionally okay, if not very well aligned. Never mind. Okay, onwards and upwards. Hello. I'm just sitting here having a think. I need to kind of transition from the mock-up stage to the, yeah, that's how it's going to work. Let's start finishing some components off. This cross member needs to be fitted and the engine mounts need to be finalised. Yeah, I need to, I think, oh, I don't know where to take the engine and box right out. I might take the engine and box right out because I need to put some bolts in the steering box and on the end cap. So yeah, engine and box right out, chassis in the air, sort the cross member, sort the steering box, sort the engine mounts, put the engine and box back in. Okay, righto. Okay, I can see a way forward. Right, I'll get cracking then. I'll bring you back when there's more progress to show. Cheers then, bye. While the motor was out, I've just replaced 2 of the bolts in the steering box with these button-headed Allen bolts. But what I did is I took a drill and I just put like a sort of countersink in the holes, but at the angle of a drill. Then I put the bolt in the chuck and I just use this parting tool to countersink the underside of the head to the same angle. I've got the compound slide set over at 59 degrees, which is half of 118. I've done a load of drilling and I've got the cross member out, and I'm going to kind of just make sure I'm happy with it and put it back in a bit. Hello, welcome to Mart's garage. I've got my little helper here with me today, little Captain. He'll be going home in a couple of days. He doesn't realise it yet. He doesn't know that this isn't his new home. Okay. Anyway, right, I have done some repair work on this cross member and I've bolted it in. I've got Allen bolts here, my own rivet bolts here. I can get to these from underneath with a long extension and a universal joint, but these are so difficult to get to. I thought, well, I'll just put a button head Allen bolt in with so I can do it up from the top. Anyway, so they're all in. I'm going to get a vacuum and vacuum the bits out because I've drilled through here and there, none of which have come through really great. They're a little bit compromised on the position, but it is what it is, you know. This is a cross member from a different car. So I need packing pieces to go between the cross member and the frame. I need to measure the thickness and make a packing piece. So I need 4 of those. Here are my engine mounts. Nice and simple, not much to them. Relatively heavy piece of tubing. Those are the shock absorber mount holes. So that's nice and simple, not much to it. This one I had to weld a little piece in because I adjusted the height, but that came out okay. If I was doing them again, I'd possibly just make them a tiny bit longer, but they're okay. And here's the thing that I messed up yesterday. There's the one side. What I've done, I've cut these ears off and re-welded them. And to cut it, I had to cut through the end. So there's a welded repair on the end there. So yeah, so even though I said, oh, it'll be okay, you know what I'm like. But what tends to happen with me is that I kind of work and then I end up with a couple of little problems like this and this. And I needed to drill some holes in here in this cross member, not just drill the holes, but the holes weren't in the right place. So I came out today and the first thing I did was took the cross member out and I welded up all the holes that didn't line up, and I've re-drilled all the holes that didn't line up. I drilled new holes instead of slotting old holes. And I cut these off and welded them on again, and I cleaned those up and painted those. So all the unpleasant jobs from yesterday that I was left with at the end of the day, when I was tired and kind of had enough, I've left them and done them today when I was fresh. So they're all done. So that's going to just get another bit more paint on it. These are ready to bolt in. That one goes there. I'm going to use these same bolts there and there. I'm going to take them to 5/16 and bolt through there. So we'll have a bolt there, and a big bolt there, and a big bolt there. That should be good enough. Yeah, so I'm assembling, starting to reassemble now. All these things that have had to be reworked to cope with the movement of the engine. Okay. Hello. I've been working most of the day on the car, and as usual, there's very little to show for it. But what I've done is I've put the cross member in, including these button-headed Allen bolts. I put the engine mounts in, and I've put button-headed Allen bolts there to match these, and it's got a 7/16 one there which goes through the original shock mount hole. Then I've got the shock mounts stroke headlamp brackets bolted there, just spaced off with a washer, which is how I had it before. But I have put I've used cylinder head nuts on there, so they're thicker than normal. I've put some spacers in there underneath there. You can just see it there, and put a bolt down through there. But can you see that I've had to cut the flange? So this is what I've been doing. I've been sort of custom fitting bolts for each thing. So it's quite time consuming, and then drilling holes and making sure holes are aligned. Oh, the other thing I did was I welded there and there, and I filed this to suit the bolt. So it's hopefully it's all looking, you know, it's going to fit nice now. So that's actually good progress for today. Like I say, good progress made, but not much to show for it because it's just fitting the parts, but fitting them properly and tightening all the bolts up. I'm quite pleased with these engine mounts. They're nice and simple, a little bit of a cleaner design than the old ones. Okay, righto. I'll bring you back when there's more to show. Cheers then, bye. I'm under the car, and here's the rear mount, and it's all done up nice and tight. It's clamped together with its little clamp bolts, and it's got 7/16 bolts through it. The holes are slotted, and it's clamped around that casing nice and tight. I've got some adjustment. I can go up a little bit if I want to. And what I did, I went on the lathe and I made some spacers. There's 4 of those there. I had a stack of 10 washers, and I measured the stack of 10 washers, and it was 24mm, so I made the spacers 24mm. So there's the rear mount in place, and you probably won't be able to tell, but it is central, and it is really firm, really firm. It's really well located. The motor is back in, it's back down on its mounts, the cross member is in, the brake pipe is secured to the cross member, and everything's just had a little bit of a light spray with black paint. When the tail shaft is centered at the back, there is clearance here. There's clearance there, not much, but clearance nonetheless. There, you can just see the clearance there. Not much, but it is clearance. Okay, so the front end is coming back together. The gearbox is in place. When I come out again for my next session, I'll probably fit the overdrive, and then that can be said to be permanently in place. Plenty done, plenty still to do, but good progress made. The engine is now properly in place. Thanks very much for joining me then. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye. What I think I would like to do is put the overdrive in place to get the gearbox sort of buttoned up, and I've fitted a lid temporarily. That's one that I've been working on. I'll show it in more detail in another video, but I wanted to just get the gearbox covered up so that things can't fall into it, and likewise I want to get the rear end of this covered up. You know, it doesn't make any sense to leave it open longer than necessary. Okay, back in a bit. There's an Allen bolt up the end of there, but I couldn't really get any proper torque on it on the bench. Okay, that'll do. Okay, right-ho. This is really solid. You can't move it. I'm going to shove it too much because the car's on axle stands. I'm going to decide what I want to do next. One of the things I can do is make some struts to go from here to the engine steady rod locations on the chassis. My friend gave me some bits and pieces yesterday which might be useful for that. So I might actually look at these as soon as it's fresh in my mind. And then once they're in place, I'll look at the shortening of the torque tube. So this is how it all looks in situ. There's the Ford Type UJ. You can see the Allen bolt down there. Here's where the braces will go, from here down to there. I'm toying with the idea of using a rubber bush at that point there, just to kind of probably improve the NVH. it's isolated here, and I think even with a rubber bush there and a rose joint here, there'll still be enough sort of fore and aft location to avoid any clutch problems. Okay, so there's the conversion in place. So the rest of the job is just dealing with all the peripheral items, torque tube shortening, you know, different radiator hoses, just slight shortening of those due to the fact the engines move forward, possibly change to the exhaust, you know, slight, just little changes here and there. I'm hoping that the movement isn't enough to create the need for major changes. Okay, right, here we go then. Jolly good, a job well done. Let's take a break now and leave it at that for now, and I will see you in another video. Cheers then, bye. Just come down and done a little bit of a late nighter and copied the first side for the second side, and there's the two struts in place. I think they're actually pretty good, and they will channel all the forces from the back axle down into the legs of the K-member. They're attached directly at the back of where the legs attach. Quite pleased with that. I think it looks okay and kind of well balanced and plenty strong enough. Too strong, to be honest, but as soon as they are rubber bushes, I'd rather have big ones, you know, big strong ones than little wimpy soft ones. That was an idea that came to fruition. It was just fortunate that I went to visit my friend Steve, and he gave me these bars that somebody else had made, and that's how they look from above, which I think you'd have to agree looks okay. Well, I think it looks okay, and you can better visualize the way it channels the loads down into the K-member there. Look, quite good that. I'm sort of pleased with that. It's worked out quite neat, really. I will continue tomorrow. Cheers then, bye.